You know how I've covered several rap beefs involving Joe Budden? Well, yeah, here's one more for you. There's probably no introduction needed for either of these rappers at this point, but let's go for it anyway real quick. Jersey City's own Joe Budden had a beef with his Def Jam label mate Jay-Z, who at this point had become one of the biggest rappers and went on to become the president of the label. Joe was an up-and-coming rapper while Jay had already released 7 albums at this point and was about to retire from rap. If you call not dropping an album for 3 years retiring. I guess if you go from releasing an album every year, then yeah, it's a bit different. This beef goes back to 2003 when Joe released the hit single Pump It Up, which has gotten him called a one-hit wonder by many. This beef between the two started with an attempt at getting Jay-Z to do a verse for a remix to Pump It Up. Apparently, Jay-Z claimed he would do the remix for $250,000, and that high price point is what set the beef off. However, according to an interview Joe had on Drink Champs in 2023, he stated that it wasn't him that spoke to Jay, it was Skane, who had worked as an A&R, that had the conversation with Jay, and also that the amount was not $250,000, but it was indeed a high amount at the time for them to pay for a feature.
Is it true that you asked Jay-Z to get on Pump It Up, and he said, give me $250,000?
That's the rumor. That's a rumor. Because I didn't personally ask him. I couldn't personally speak to him.
Did you go through Web and
But I
Liddy?
think Skane reached out.
Okay,
I think
so the rumor is you asked him for $250,000.
No, I asked him for a verse.
A verse, and he asked you.
But you didn't ask him directly, you're saying?
Yeah, I think he said to Skane, I was outside probably in the hallway.
But Skane is direct.
hall.
That's like me
Skane
asking you for bars.
And for people that don't know, it's Desert Storm, that whole camp that you were in, right?
Very powerful guy. Big up Skane Dollar.
Yeah.
Very powerful dude. One of the Clues right-hand man.
Jay-Z then decided to do a freestyle to Pump It Up, coming out right after he basically declined doing the remix. Maybe he felt insulted by being asked to be on a remix to a song with an up-and-coming rapper, or he just had a personal issue with Joe. Either way, it's a pretty petty thing to do in my view. On the intro, he quotes Ice Cube from his track Jackin' for Beats, on which Cube was rapping on different beats throughout the track with the line, "Give me that beat, fool, it's a full-time jack move." Then says, "Don't worry, Skano, I'll give it back soon. Just having a little fun. What's up, little nigga?" That likely being a reference to the fact that Skane had asked him to be on the remix and referring to Joe as the little nigga in question. On the freestyle, he has some lines which seem to be subliminal shots aimed at Joe. He has the lines, "Worry, I'm not the Mike Jordan of the mic recording. It's Hovey, baby. You Kobe, maybe. Tracy McGrady. Matter of fact, you a Harold Miner, J.R. Ryder, washed up on marijuana. Even worse, you a Purvis Ellis. You worthless fella. You ain't no athlete. You Sean Bradley. I ain't talking to nobody in particular. My flow's just vehicular homicide when I'm kicking up dust. Anybody in my path is a car crash waiting to happen." The athlete lines are Jay calling himself the best in the sport of rap, and the person he's calling not an athlete could very well be taken as a shot at Joe, considering he's using the beat to his song. The funny thing is, the beat for this song was actually offered to other artists before Joe, like Jay-Z himself and Beanie Siegel. The line about dust is possibly a reference to how Joe is admittedly a former Angel Dust addict. However, that is assuming that Jay-Z knew this at this point. It's possible considering they were on the same label and all. Joe Budden responded with a freestyle of his own, once again using the Pump It Up beat. Joe starts off with saying, "Give me that beat, fool, it's a full-time jack move. Sorry Jay, Webb said take it back, dude. Nitty too, he played a part in that." Which is Joe pretty much stealing the beat back from Jay, who stole it from him. Webb and Nitty are New York street guys who Joe was associated with, and he's mentioned on his music and on his podcast several times. Joe starts off addressing Jay with the lines, "It's been a good week, Hova, you can give it back now. All these rappers is cooking crack and took the realness out the game, it's time to put it back in. The fans finally got it understood, they just yapping, while Joey's in the hood like Madden." By this point, Jay-Z had started referring to himself as Hova, so that is Joe talking directly to Jay. All these rappers cooking crack is a reference to the numerous rappers out there that rap about selling crack, Jay being one of the most prominent examples at that time. Joe responds to Jay's athlete lines with some lines of his own. I ain't Kobe or Tracy, Jay-Z, JB, Merc, Joey the Future. I'm more like Dirk. Anybody buying respect me, try and wet me. Y'all dudes will never make it. Y'all are Tyus Edney. I'ma stand out like Yao Ming. I'm what's sparking now, like fallback Shaq. I'm starting now. Boys popping it, toys popping spit. I'm not from around these parts. I'm Stojakovic. Never hear your man say I'm the Jordan of rap, and he's getting fatigued early and his scoring is lacking. Legacy is getting ruined and you don't want that. So pretty much learn from him. Don't come back. Now, I don't follow sports, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Just as Jay mentioned a bunch of athletes, Joe is showing that he could do the same. He then follows it up with the lines, and rap is getting whacked, time for G's to step in, cause you are not that hot, don't believe the yes men, ain't about who's better than, it's so evident, they hard to be real with no evidence, and I ain't coming at Jay cause he's the greatest breathing, but he already paved the way, I'm just laying my cement. Ironically enough, he takes shots at someone for their legacy allegedly being ruined and whatnot, but he also claims to not be taking shots at Jay and calls him the greatest breathing. He also makes a reference to 50 Cent on here with the lines, "Seen many men with the Jake. Next time y'all listen to many men, I'll make sure you relate. Only Jay coulda came, just blazed it like me. Everybody else chill, just Blaze can agree." Around this time, Joe was also beefing with 50 Cent and G-Unit. If you haven't seen my video yet on their beef, then check that one out as well. Many Men is of course the promotional single by 50 Cent from his album Get Rich or Die Tryin', which was also released in 2003. And Just Blaze is the producer of Pump It Up, who was known, along with Kanye West at the time, for producing a lot of tracks for Jay, in particular on his Blueprint album released in 2001, which is considered a classic by many. Joe then finishes the freestyle off with the lines, "What the dealin', like New York been soft since Bin Laden came through and crushed the buildings, trying to restore the feeling, just speaking to ya, I'm just speaking through ya." The line about the buildings is both a reference to the September 11th attack on the World Trade Center in Manhattan, New York, but also a reference to the lines from the Jay-Z song Money Cash Hoes from his album Volume 2 Hard Knock Life. "What's the dealings? It's like New York's been soft ever since Snoop came through and crushed the buildings. I'm trying to restore the feelings." That itself was a reference to the video for the Dog Pound song, New York, New York, in which the video featured Snoop Dogg crushing buildings in New York. Also going back to September 11, 2001, that was the day that Jay released the Blueprint album, which I mentioned a minute ago. Fast forward to 2005, and Rockefeller co-founders Dame Dash, Kareem Burke aka Biggs, and Jay-Z split up, with Jay becoming the president of Def Jam and Dame and Biggs forming their own company. This news didn't sit well with some artists on Def Jam, in particular Joe Budden and DMX. Joe is known for not exactly being happy with the record labels he's been signed to, and Def Jam is no exception. He's been on interviews years later talking about how he could have handled the situation with Jay becoming the president of Def Jam better though. DMX had an interview with The Breakfast Club in 2012 in which he spoke on several things. One of those being about how for his 6th album, Jay was the president of the label and Jay had told him things would be good. But then when he recorded his album and shot the video for the single, Jay basically didn't follow through.
What made DMX stop recording and we being truthful, because we want to know. We haven't heard from X in a long time.
Y'all know the story already, you know what I'm saying? You used to be my dog, you was in my left titty, you know, scream right or die, I thought you would die with me, you know. What happened was, you know, like I said, I had the crazy track record at Def Jam, everything was good. You know, I go to do the 6th album, and, you know,
Jay-Z became president.
Yeah. You know, when he first got the job, he hit me with the call like, "Yo, dog, inmates is running the building," like, "Yo, you good?" Mm-hmm. Finish the album, shoot the video. What happened? Mm-hmm. Niggas go on vacation and, you know, we don't know. What you mean you don't know? Mm-hmm. How do you listen to a whole album, pick a single, shoot a video, then don't know? Okay, I see what's really good. You're trying to eliminate the competition. You know, because at first you retire, you know, then get me off the label, now you're back rapping again.
His album wound up going through delays, which explains the gap in releases, with his first 5 albums being released between 1998 and 2003, but his 6th album being released in 2006. A similar issue also apparently went on with LL Cool J. According to DMX, Jay was trying to get rid of the competition. Remember in 2003, he released his retirement album, The Black Album, and then he returned to rap in 2006 with his comeback album, Kingdom Come. I say all that to say that Joe wasn't the only person that had issues with Jay being the president of Def Jam, and it is a part of the beef between these two. Around this time, Joe's 2nd album on Def Jam was supposed to be released, which was going to be titled The Growth. It wound up getting shelved, apparently due to Jay-Z. During all this, Joe started putting out mixtapes, namely the Mood Music series. On Mood Music, The Worst of Joe Budden, the first in the series, he has a track titled Def Jam Diss. Granted, this mixtape was released before Jay became the president of the label, it probably doesn't help the relationship between Joe and Jay. During the freestyle, Joe has the lines, "Then they went and kept Joe off the Rock the Mic tour. Somebody probably thought Joey would've rocked the mic more." Considering Rock the Mic is a song by State Property members Beanie Siegel and Freeway, who were known for being signed to Rockefeller, a label as I said Jay is the co-founder of, it would appear to be a shot at Jay and perhaps the label as a whole. That once again goes back to the idea that Jay was concerned about the competition in the rap game, or maybe just had a problem with Joe in particular. In 2006, Joe released the mixtape Mood Music 2, Can It Get Any Worse? And on that mixtape is the song Old School Mouse. On that song, he makes mention of his beef with Jay-Z. Joe has the lines, "Don't hear Reasonable Doubt the same no more, I can't listen to Blueprint, got a resentment toward Hove, tried to hate on him, throwing in my 2 cents. They say don't bite the hand that feeds you, even if I wanted to, I can't, no teeth to. Don't get me wrong, still I love Clue and Hove, but they both rich, so what they gotta do with Joe?" Before that, he mentions falling out with DJ Clue, who was one of the co-founders of Desert Storm Records. So yeah, once again, Joe has a history of record label issues and airs out his grievances with a bunch of bars. In 2007, Joe released the mixtape Mood Music 3, For Better or For Worse. On that mixtape is the track Talk to Him. Joe sends shots at a few people on the song, Jay-Z being one of them. He has the lines, "For you times is tough too cause ain't nobody buying your albums but you. From the sounds of everything I hear, you lost it. Still rap but your ears exhausted. Fuck your bunch of money, put your ego to the side, and maybe it's time to study your understudy." Essentially, screw Jay-Z being rich. He's still rapping, but he's not as good as he used to, according to Joe at least. I'm sure there's other people out there that felt the same way though. Then he finishes the verse with the lines, "I mean, are we hustling or are we grown up? Every time I hear you, you changing your tone up. When a new generation think about Jordan, all they remember is when Iverson crossed him. Take off the blazer, loosen up the tie, nigga fell in love and Superman died. Better learn to cover your ears when the toys pop. I hate your last single, Boys Rock. Can we hear some new niggas with promise? The new generation won't forget you, we promise. We'll always pay homage, but let's get one thing understood, son. Every encore ain't a good one." Once again, another bar about athletes with the Jordan and Iverson lines. Basically, Joe compares Jordan and Iverson to Jay and himself. Also, there's a shot at Jay having switched up his style with the whole blazer and loosening up the tie line. Basically, Jay is a businessman now rather than a rapper. Then the Encore line is a reference to the song Encore from the Black Album, which was supposed to be his retirement album as I mentioned earlier. The new single line is a reference to the Jay-Z song Rock Boys from the American Gangster album released in 2007.
I didn't get to him till all the way at the end. For you times is rough too, cause ain't nobody buying your albums but you. Ain't nobody buying your albums but you. From everything I hear, you lost it. Still rap, alright, but your ears exhausted. Fuck your bunch of money. Let's put your ego to the side. Maybe it's time to study your understudy. I mean, are we hustling or are we grown up? Every time I hear you changing your tone up. When the new generation think about Jordan, all they remember is when Iverson crossed them. Let's take off the blazer, loosen up the tie. Nigga fell in love and Superman died. Better learn to cover your ears when them toys pop. I hate your last single. Only a few of your boys rock. Can we hear some new niggas with promise? The new generation won't forget you, we promise. We'll always pay homage, but let's get one thing understood, son. Every encore ain't a good one. It's not bad.
I'm saying so.
But I mean, even that, like, of course it will say that I'm coming at him. But I mean, honestly, I don't have the accolades or the accomplishments to be able to come at Jay. What I was doing was more so expressing myself. You just get frustrated.
Also on the mixtape is the track Roll Call. On that track, Joe again makes a mention of the Def Jam situation and Jay-Z. On the first verse, Joe has the lines, See, niggas trying to block the road rather than my label drop the growth. They should drop us both. See, I could scream Def Jam and what they used to be, but that ain't for me to say, that's for you to see. If not Method Man or Redman, Ghostface, Young Guns, need I say Freeway? The proof is me. Still don't believe me? Then where's Petey Petey? They ain't really giving a fuck unless you Jeezy. That's what my mind say. Just know if you ain't the president or Kanye, you won't see the time of day. In other words, only the biggest artists on the label are getting priority, according to Joe. As I said earlier, The Growth was supposed to be Joe's second album on Def Jam, but it got shelved. It's often said that when a fellow artist is in charge of the record label, they're going to be putting their own career ahead of others. This would appear to be one of those times. So personally, I can't say I blame him for feeling the way he did. At least he put it on wax and gave us music to listen to. In August 2009, the group Slaughterhouse, which Joe was a member of, released their self-titled debut album. If you don't know, the other members of the group are Royce da 5'9", Crooked I, and Joell Ortiz, or were rather, as the group has since been dissolved. On that album is the track Microphone. Joe has my favorite verse on it, by the way. Joe on his verse takes yet another subliminal shot at Jay. He has the lines, "Too many dogs, not enough barking yet. Too many blueprints, not enough architects." This would be yet another reference to Jay-Z's Blueprint album series. At that point, Jay had Blueprint 1, 2, and 2.1, and 3 was due to be released soon. Speaking of which, Blueprint 3 was released in September 2009, and it features the song Reminder. It's one of my favorite songs from the album, and on the track he sends a shot at Joe. On the third verse, he has the lines, "Throwbacks, I threw 'em back. Remember those? Button-ups, Young Hove, tell them Ordinary Joe's button up." This was a shot at Joe, of course, calling him ordinary. Simple enough, and it very well might be a response to the previous Joe line about blueprints. Joe responded to this line on the track Keep On in January 2010. He finishes his second verse with the lines, "And not to let off a shot, but I'm better than hot. They don't need a reminder if they never forgot." A quick response to Jay's Reminder track. Then in August 2011, Jay-Z and Kanye released the album Watch the Throne. Shortly afterwards, for the BET Hip Hop Awards in October 2011, Shady Records had a cypher featuring Yellow Wolf, Slaughterhouse, and Eminem. On Joe's verse, he has the lines, "Don't blame y'all for being trash, fans are copping it, the radio's the crime scene, the masses are the hostages. In my youth, I'd throw shots, the fad was dodging it. I'm grown, I ain't watching the throne, I'm sabotaging it." A subliminal shot aimed at Jay-Z and a stray shot aimed at Kanye. Unlike other beefs the two have been involved in, like Joe's beef with G-Unit or Jay's beef with Nas, this one didn't have as much of a direct back and forth. Like I said, Jay only had a few subliminal shots at Joe over the years, while Joe was the main one sending shots at Jay and Def Jam as a whole. Joe, however, would speak on his relationship with Jay-Z on multiple interviews as well as his podcast, initially titled Our Name This Podcast Later, which has since been changed to the Joe Budden Podcast. For example, on one episode of his podcast, he talked about how he had multiple conversations with one of the co-hosts, Mal, who was a younger brother of Biggs, about getting Jay to have a conversation with Joe about Joe's grievances on the beef. They talked about how they ran into Jay at Duce Palooza one year, and before he could even finish what he was saying, Jay simply responded with, "So what?" Possibly a way of dismissing Joe's feelings on the matter because he didn't consider it a big deal as rappers jump on other people's beats all the time, or possibly because it had been over a decade since the incident had occurred. Either way though, the beef between the two has since been squashed, as Joe has retired from rapping and is focused on his podcast, and Jay has not put out an album of his own in some years now as well. Joe has mentioned Jay on his podcast, but it's not in a rap beef sense anymore, and more of what a typical podcaster would do, as in reporting on the news and the like. What do you think about the beef though? Was Joe right in venting his frustration in songs about Def Jam and Jay's decision making as president of the label? Was it right for Jay-Z to want to charge $250,000 to appear on the remix of one of his label mates' songs? Was he right in jumping on it and freestyling and setting shots at Joe? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, click that thumbs up button to like the video, and check out the links in the description box below to follow on other platforms and become a channel member or patron.